Hi everybody, and welcome to video 2 of our GPD series. And in this video I'm going to be going through various career stories over specific alumni. So this is Aiden. Now Aiden was a student in my GPD class, and one of the things we talk about in the class is how to give a stellar 3-minute thesis presentation, which is distilling your PhD thesis or your master's thesis down into 3 minutes for the general audience. So Aiden already had this in his back pocket. So when he was at a conference and this one particular woman who was in business development asked him, "What is it that you do?" He already had this all ready to go. And she said, "Well, let's talk when we get back to Toronto." And then a couple of months later, Aiden came to me and he said, "I'm not quite sure what's happening. This company, they're taking me out to dinner. They're asking me some questions about protein structure." And I said, "Well, this is building rapport." And then a couple of months later, he came and he said, "Well, I think I'm working for them. Should I ask to get paid?" And I said, "Well, of course, you're going to have to outline your milestones and your deliverables and your time to completion." And he asked his supervisor. His supervisor said, "Well, it's 5 hours a week. That's fine with me." And the next day he came to me and he said, "Well, they were all ready with the contract. They were just waiting for me to ask." So Aiden had this internship during his PhD for about 5 hours a week, and he was in charge of coming up with these 3D glasses that when you look through them with the visual through your phone with amino acid side chain coordinates, you can actually see the protein amino acids move in whatever milieu they were in. And so this was a tool not just for biochemists, but also for molecular biologists, for people that were not in structure, and also for high school students that were interested in science or even thinking about science. So he gave conference lectures and he traveled with this company. And a year and a half later, he came to me and he said, "Great news, I just published this in Nature Methods." So this is a story of how Aiden's ability to communicate and also build his network outside of his academic environment gave him the opportunity to build a network in scientific outreach, but also with an industry partner, and publish something. So right now he is an academic postdoc. Whether he goes off into academia or stay in industry or off to industry, he has experience in both worlds. So here's another example of a medical communication student. Okay? So let's start with Ming. Ming is now a communication specialist at a communication firm, but she didn't start like that. She had to build towards that. So if we go backwards, before that, she was a medical writer as a learning solutions analyst. And before that, while she was a research associate, she was a mentee of a knowledge transfer program and she took project management workshops. And then before that, as a PhD student, she was a communications mentor for her department. She was a conflict management peer advisor, and she also took this course. So as you can see, this timeline is a buildup of various what I call meaningful engagements over the course of your PhD, but also after, to obtain that final career path of current. Where she's going to go in the future is unknown, but I'm sure it's going to be built upon this as well. So here's an example of Alex. Alex is currently a research director at a healthcare company. Before that, he was a senior consultant. And before that, he was a market analyst, a senior analyst. Somewhere in here, he defended his PhD. And while during his PhD, he was a scientific consultant for ScienceScape, which is now Meta. And then before that, along with the course, he was also a scientific contributor to F1000, and he was a TA as well. So as you can see, again, Alex had these series of meaningful engagements throughout his PhD, but also after, to gain his role currently. And this is not to say that you need to spend tons of hours outside of your PhD to do these little meaningful engagements. It could be a couple hours a week, just like I talked about with Aiden's story. Now here's Emil's path. This is the academic path. Now, how do you get to assistant professor? Well, assistant professor positions, you usually have interviews at the year before. But before that time, what you want to be doing all this time You want to be working on your presentations, your publications, for sure. Publications, the currency for academia. Build network and collaborations at conferences. And have lab and management, budget management workshop and skills in leadership, EDI, those type of things. Emil is also involved in science outreach and was also a communication mentor and a teaching assistant. Okay, so again, all of these things have built towards his current path. Here's another example of Unji, who is now in the pharma industry, and she obtained her job before she even defended. And how did she do that? Was, again, all of these various meaningful engagements that she did before that. So if we work backwards, these are her 3 publications, which again also contribute to excelling in industry jobs as well. She was an intern for another pharma company. She did some case studies. She was executive in student groups, chair in leadership conference, and also took this course. And again, you can see Unji's meaningful engagements stemming all the way back from when she was a student. Okay. So how do you create your own pathway? How do you create your own career portfolio? And just to let you know, the names have been modified in those case studies. So if you know who you are, thank you. And good luck going forward. So what are the 3 steps of GPD going forward for you audience members? I'm going to be talking about those in my next video, number 3. See you there.